Good morning, guys. Took me a second to figure out what to do a video on this morning, and I don't want to waste anyone's time, least of all myself. So what I want to do here is cover the stock charts that I see interesting things in this morning. We've been in a kind of a holding pattern the last few days where there just hasn't really been much going on. So yesterday I did that stock blitz video just covering lots of different stocks that I look at. And I kind of do a skim through every morning and just run through things, looking at various stocks. I look at the high flyers that are moving from the night before, and look for setups basically. So here's what I'm seeing going on right now. Okay, triple Qs. So we've got this uptrend line right here, and it's really just going back to November 10th basically. So about a week or so. And here's the uptrend line. We're starting to break that right now basically. So I was watching for a break of this. Looks like we're starting to get it, but we'll see if this can stick. Look for an impulsive breakdown candle, and then usually you want to see confirmation with a following candle. But again, breakdown candle is number one. If we get that, then that will be a sell signal. And you can see here, if I get rid of this line here on the hourly chart, we also have negative divergence right there. It's just slight negative divergence where the momentum was starting to fade and we made a slightly higher price. So I'm watching for that. A couple things I've been wanting to see happen. Some of them have happened and some haven't. So here's the SPY futures. And here's kind of the corresponding uptrend line that we had in the SPY futures ES. Broke that a little while ago, but it didn't really go anywhere, and that's because the NASDAQ futures right here had not broken. So you can see here, here's your uptrend line. NASDAQ futures kind of hanging in there. And then the SPY obviously started to break down, but then the Qs is continuing this uptrend line. So if the NASDAQ futures and the Qs are going to break, then that will be the sell signal. But if they don't, well, then we wait. I don't think there's too much. I'm not interested in being long this market. I'm really more interested in finding short opportunities. I think there's a better opportunity to the downside. And, if we start breaking to the downside, then this is just an hourly chart, then we'll flip to the daily and look for daily setups. I do think that we are heading down to this 270 area and probably going to break it. We did test it twice. You can see it. That was a valid area that I pointed out. It held a support twice here and here. So if we get back down there, we should break it. And if we break it, we should head down to the bottom of the channel. So that's really the trade setup that I think is most likely. Doesn't mean it's going to play out, but it's definitely most likely. And if I look at the SPY, you can see we do have negative divergence here on the daily chart now. Right there. You can see we made a new, if I get rid of this trend line right here, you can see we made a new higher high right here on this price action right here. And that put in, really this cluster put in a divergent high right in here. So we're starting to turn down on the RSI. If we continue to sell off, then that's going to be confirmed negative divergence. I'm looking for the PPO crossover where the blue is going to cross back below the orange. We don't see that quite yet. But if that shows up, then we'll have a divergent high in the SPY. Divergent highs usually fail. They usually head lower. So definitely looks good to me if we continue lower. Another one to watch, Tesla. So gapped up this morning, but it was gapping right up into the major resistance level. So here's the resistance right here at 454.08. It's about right there. And if you go to the hourly, I get that level. That's really the previous kind of peak when Tesla, when there's share split. So this was the share split buying where the bulls were basically trapped. And you can see it's been rejected at the resistance level pretty much every single time it's been up here. Tested it. This is the fourth test of it. Tested it, rejected, or rejected here, rejected there. And then today again, rejected, sold into. So Tesla hasn't, as bullish as all the headlines seem, it continues to be sold into at this level pretty heavily. This might be a long-term top for Tesla, or a kind of we might not see Tesla at these levels for quite some time. So I don't know if that's true, but again, we keep getting rejected here, so we'll just watch. I took a short. So if everyone who's been following me knows that the other day I said I was cutting my Tesla short because it wasn't doing anything. I was basically flat, and I wanted to wait for a better setup. Well, the better setup came today on this big gap up. So it gapped up 13%. I saw that it sold down, closed back below resistance on this first hourly candle, and we're continuing to sell. So that was your sell signal, or that was your better setup, I guess, to be short, and I took that one. Oil stocks, Exxon Mobil, they continue to be some of the better performers. You can see Exxon Mobil's running higher. The two stocks that I really traded was CVX and Exxon Mobil. CVX, I took profit when we got the first rip higher. So this was my profit target. I took profit here. Obviously a little too early, but you never know. I was still up about 20% in about 4 days, so I took that. And then Exxon Mobil just hasn't gotten to my profit target yet. So my profit target for this one is about 41. So I'm looking for that to continue up to that level. And it looks good to me. So you can see today they sold it down a little bit, but the buyer stepped in and they continue to push it higher. So I'm thinking, this looks good to 41 or somewhere near at least. I might step in a little bit early, but I think up around that level is where this thing wants to go. Let's look at UAL. Someone asked me about this one. I know that the headlines out there are talking about a rotation and the travel stocks and everything, rotation to value. The point that I want to make is don't listen to the headlines. Just look at the charts. They'll tell you what is actually going to happen most likely. UAL, here's what I see. We've got negative divergence here on the hourly right there. We also have a PPO that looks like it's about to cross over. We'll see if it does. So this price action right here was a divergent high. Trend lines, well, we don't have a ton of trend lines. We do have this level right here. We could watch this level right about there. And so far we're holding above it. A break below it would be bearish, and that would set in motion probably some downside selling. Let's look at the daily here. Yeah, negative divergence clearly in the daily. You can mark it out right there. See that? Negative momentum and a slightly higher price. So that was a divergent high. So if this was truly that bullish and there was a lot of participation and there really was this grand rotation, then you would have seen the RSI run a lot higher with a lot of a lot of momentum, and it just didn't do that. It made a higher price on slightly less momentum than previous. So something to note, it doesn't mean this can't go higher. It just means that there is the potential now for this thing to drop. And here's some gold, and just kind of reiterate what I'm talking about. The headline is that there's going to be massive inflation, and there's going to be there's all this money printing, so gold's going to go higher, which I do think is true over the longer term, but that doesn't mean that you can just shoot straight to the moon and never have any major pullbacks. And gold is continuing to just work its way down in a downward trend. Now, it doesn't look like extremely bearish price action. It looks to me more like a bull flag is what I see. So I'm just looking for a little more downside to kind of finish off this bull flag. And then I think we probably do continue higher. But again, if you bought the narrative when everyone was buying gold on this big ramp up here, I know it was one of the number one holdings on the Robinhood crowd was GLD. And when you buy that when you chase, basically you get punished for it typically. So something to watch. These solar stocks aren't quite ready to break, but I think they're going to soon. So we're just letting them to kind of do their thing. Here's NEO, uptrend line right here. Just kind of hanging in there. It doesn't want to break. Let me extend that out. It hasn't broken yet, so obviously still in an uptrend. Not an area I'd want to be long at, especially with big negative divergence in play. If you go to the hourly or the daily here, you can see we've got negative divergence right there that's starting to build. So we just wait for that to break. Tesla, obviously we covered that one. Run, this one, still below trend. So here's your uptrend line. We broke, had a kickback rally. Looks like maybe it's going to do another kickback rally. You never know how many times these things are going to do back tests. And that is why it's important to not just completely load up on a position when you have your sell signal. You know, it's all about position sizing and entering into a position appropriately. So if we do rally from here, it could go up another, that could be 20% gain, although that 20% gain would be the area that I would want to be short. I don't want to be long this because we're below trend, so there's no guarantee it's going to run up and do a back test. It could just roll over because it's below trend, but if it does go up, that's where I want to add to a short position or establish a short position. First Solar here, hanging in there. It broke trend, but it doesn't want to give it up. You can see right here on the daily, they're trying to recover that. So we'll see what they end up doing today and how this play closes the day. If they can recover this trend line, that's bullish, and it should, you know, that should continue move higher slightly until we see a clear break of trend. We don't have a sell signal, although we have big negative divergence right here telling us that that sell signal is coming soon. We just don't know when. So this can continue to build for a little while, and then you get the sell signal. You just got to wait for it. Same with TAN, the solar stock ETF. Big negative divergence right here on the daily chart, continuing to kind of walk up the trend line. The price actions, you know, it's doing nothing. It's flat basically. It's just hanging out right in here. So we're just going to wait for that sell signal, and then we're going to take this thing short. That's what I'm going to be doing as soon as that thing comes. The divergence tells me I don't want to go long this thing, and you know, I'm going to wait for that sell signal. And we'll wrap up with DraftKings here. DraftKings is bear flagging, and you can see, doesn't mean it's going to play out, but here's your bear. There's your flagpole. There's your flag that I have marked out. We measure the breakdown point whenever we get that. Let me go to the daily just to clean that up. And, you know, we get a breakdown, and yeah, I think it sets us up for somewhere around 1865, 24. You know, here's these levels that will probably come into play. 25.14 and then 18.60. Somewhere in there, you know, we could find some support. So, you know, if we get the breakdown, I'll probably be taking profit down here. And if we get a little bit more, I'll take profit and probably round out the trade down there. And anybody that followed me on this one, I pointed out in the community post I was getting short right here, and then I said in my video yesterday, it looks like a good spot to cover. We're still holding this flag, and that proved to be true, which is why I did cover. Anytime we come right down to some sort of a support level, I usually look to cover and then wait for it to prove that it wants to continue lower. So I'll cover at support, and then if it breaks that support and shows me that it's still weak, I can always get back short again or add back into the position with relatively minor give back. But it's better to wait for that proof to show up. So I took profit right there. Now it's bouncing up. But again, just continuing to wedge higher in a bearish rising wedge pattern. So see the bearish rising wedge? These typically resolve to the downside. And the divergence right here that is showing me on the hourly chart tells me it's going to resolve to the downside. So watch for that. However, you know, what I've noticed, they do like to, sometimes recently, the algos or whatever like to break this thing to the upside, chop around just a little bit, and then completely collapse to the downside. So that is a possibility as well. If we break to the upside impulsively and we get up in this area, watch for that collapse to the downside. And if we start to break down, that's usually going to be good to break the complete wedge pattern and set this thing in motion to the downside. So that will be something I will watch very closely. That's all I got in this video, guys. Anything else that you guys see that's interesting, leave it in the comment below. I know some subscribers asked me to take a look at some stocks, and so I'll cover those in my subscriber pick video. And if I see anything that's interesting or tradable in the near term, I'll put that out in a video as well. Thanks, guys. Bye.